Yeah, the two ways that you're most likely going to screw up or violate it on purpose, quite frankly, for some of the people out there that are just assholes, it would be through your copy or through your targeting. Okay. So it's either going to be the words that you're using in your MLS descriptions, in your ads, in your marketing, or it's going to be who you target with those words. So it's basically either copy or targeting. That is going to basically be the way it goes. And we can toss it to our big announcement a little bit later, Jimmy, but you know, here's the biggest and most important thing. Let's get into the changes, because there's changes Facebook made. There's changes that every person watching needs to make. And that really is why I think most people are tuning in. What do I need to change or stop doing because of what just happened?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to get into, which is what has Facebook actually done? How have they reacted to this? Because they got sued, and what was their reaction to being sued, and what are they changing?
Yeah, they got sued. So basically, there was a smaller group than HUD that sued them, Jimmy. It was like a smaller organization than HUD, and they Facebook settled with them for $5 million. So as soon as that happened, HUD said, "Well, we're going to file a claim too," and Facebook is changing Ads Manager and changing how you can target ads for real estate. Like literally between 5 and 6 months from right now, if you are a real estate agent, you will be logging in to a custom interface built just for this industry to do your ads. And inside of that interface, they are going to disallow any demographic targeting that would violate the Fair Housing Act. Okay. Now, the other thing they announced is that they are eliminating zip code advertising. So zip code level advertising is going away. They also eliminated geo targeted advertising, meaning I've got a listing in a neighborhood. I want to do an ad just around the listing. So let's say I want to just do 1 mile, 2 miles, like the equivalent of where you would send mail, let's call it, if you had it just listed. So Facebook announced that zip code targeting is going away because of this. They are going to let you put a point on a map, but you're going to have to target within 15 miles of that radius.
Gotcha.
And Jimmy, I know where you're at there in the Back Bay. I know for a lot of our clients throughout the country, the idea of targeting a whole city, or the idea of targeting like a point on a map, but having to go 15 miles around it. It's kind of a deal breaker. It also opens up a can of worms, because if Facebook is changing zip codes and geographic targeting because of what happened, well, what else has to change? I know there's some stuff we're going to dig into, Jimmy, but you know, ultimately, all the demographics that would violate the Fair Housing Act are going away, and zip code and hyper geographical targeting is going away.
So let's be clear about one thing here. Those two filters currently exist right now within Facebook. What you just said is that Facebook is releasing a new ads manager specifically designed for the real estate industry. But you also talked earlier about the protected classes. Is zip code and geographic area, is that a protected class under the Fair Housing Act?
Well, that's actually the slippery slope that everybody kind of said, well, hold on a second, because if zip codes are going away, wouldn't Zillow go away? They sell ads by zip code. If I can't put a pin on a map and target around a mile, is direct mail going away? Like if you go to Twitter and you go to Pinterest right now, Jimmy, you could target by zip code there. Like, what about lawn signs? Like when you do an open house and you put the little pointers everywhere, like do those have to actually exist 15
Just point
miles?
all different directions?
So it's a very slippery slope. And so that was the primary question I kept getting. You know, is Zillow going to have to change the way they do their ads? Can I do mail? What about open houses? What about, like, let's say you're doing Google and you're doing AdWords and you're doing geographical area AdWords. Is that going to go away? And Jimmy, the way it was explained to me is very simple. On this particular point, Facebook, unfortunately, has decided to overcorrect. And what I mean by that is, no, geographical locations like zip codes, like cities, are not protected classes of people. So, John, pull it back up again. Probably a terrible idea to ask for him to do that. But those are the protected classes of people.
Sure.
Zip codes aren't people, they're areas. And so what happened is Facebook said, we're going to get rid of zip codes. We're going to and everybody thought, well, if they're getting rid of that because of the Fair Housing Act, then isn't all this other stuff a violation?
Yeah.
And again, we're not attorneys, but to the best of the knowledge that we've been able to gather from our contacts at NAR and Facebook, targeting a zip code, targeting a neighborhood is not a violation of the Fair Housing Act. It would be, Jimmy, if you targeted a zip code or a neighborhood and then a demographic on top of it.
Yeah, and people were asking in the chat, how can Facebook allow for demographic information to be available for targeting if it's against the law? And in fact, we saw this recently, Chris, I think it was back in August, they actually already removed 5,000 targeting options from their demographics, interests, and behaviors. Examples being like people who watch Telemundo. That used to be an option you could target, and it no longer is. I think it's always important that ignorance, I think my sister is an attorney, and she's always sort of told me that like ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So I realize people are like, well, what if Facebook allows me to target this demographic? Like I want everyone to be clear, like you should take personal responsibility for using the filters, and you'll talk about that in a minute, which filters you would use, but like you should not let Facebook put you in a corner. Or
this is part of the reason they have to relook at the law. The act, whatever you want to call it, because the way that Facebook does targeting is they have include and exclude, right? Yeah. And the way the act is written, it's all about not excluding. So the question I think that's really fair that people really should ask is, if I do an ad that includes men, I didn't say exclude women.
Sure.
I just said include men, right? If I do an ad that says include people 20 to 40.
Yep.
I didn't say exclude people over 40. See what I'm saying? Like I didn't actually go to the box that says exclude people over 50. I actually just said include people 20 to 50. So it's very, very tricky because literally in the Facebook ad manager, they use the word exclude. Yeah. And I think that for a lot of real estate agents, if they weren't, again, they're probably not trying to, I think 99.5%, well, let me take that down a little bit. I think 95% of all real estate agents are good people. And they would never do any of these things on purpose. But because it's so confusing, they might have done some of these things on accident. And so we're going to talk in a second about how do I make sure my ads are as safe as possible? Because when there is so much confusion, the way I explained it to my contact at NAR, I said, listen, this is already a very gray area that just got muddier. Like it's like a muddy puddle. Puddle's already muddy. So it's just really confusing. But yeah, all those changes. So Jimmy, to be clear, yes, you can go in right now and you can run an ad right now that only targets men. Yeah. And you can go in right now and you can go in and run an ad that only targets a certain decade of people's age. Yep. And both of those are Fair Housing Act violations.
Yeah. So let's be really clear about exactly what has happened right now before we can talk about what we can do about it. What has happened right now, what is already on record saying is going to happen. Number one, Facebook has removed 5,000 targeting options available via demographics and interest to help eliminate and sort of appease HUD in this case. Number two, you can currently still target by zip code and geographic area, dropping a pin in the map and drawing a circle around it. And number three, Facebook has announced that they are going to be removing that option, geographic targeting and zip code, from their ads manager that is going to be released when, Chris? When are they predicting that?
They said 5 months. That was what they told us, was that 5 months. Now, 5 months usually takes longer. But at the same time, there's a lot of urgency here. But, we're going to get into predictions. I'll save some of my predictions. But, I have a feeling that the $5 million Facebook paid the first organization is going to look like a drop in the bucket compared to what they're about to pay HUD.